Good morning, friends. And at the outset, I would like to thank organizing committee of MEPICON, especially Dr. Vitul, for giving me this opportunity to talk on a very important topic, that is primary hyperparathyroidism. And we know all that in this tough time, uh, I wanted to be personally there, but because of this COVID, I'm sending my video and PPT for presentation. So the talk of title today is the missed cause of six sticks and the spilled stones. You might be wondering what is the title is that, but it is very interesting. And here we are talking about the primary hyperparathyroidism. I am sure most of you must have seen many patients of primary hyperparathyroidism. Either you have seen, and if you have not seen, meaning by that probably you missed these patients of primary hyperparathyroidism in your practice. So you listen this talk very carefully. I am sure in next 1 month each one of you will see one or more patients of primary hyperparathyroidism. So the primary hyperparathyroidism can present 8 years to 80 years, meaning by that there is a wide spectrum of this disease. In this particular slide I am showing you here in the left corner a 96-year-old female presented with loss of appetite, bilateral renal stone disease and fracture. The another lady, 35-year-old female, present with bone pains for 1 year and walking with limp. And another person, young boy, who actually presented with the neck swelling and found to have the primary hyperparathyroidism. So it is very interesting. The primary hyperparathyroidism can present to pediatrics department, to the geriatrics department. Next please. So we all know that primary hyperparathyroidism is very well characterized by a pentado PHPT. That pentado PHPT is abdominal pain, renal stone, bone pains, psychic moan, fatigue overtones, and it is classically biochemically characterized by high calcium in presence of high PTH and with low phosphate. So I'll take you briefly the history of the parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland is the last organ identified in the human body. So after that there is no new organ is identified in the human body, and there is some Indian connection with the primary hyperparathyroidism or the parathyroid gland. In this picture you see the Indian rhinoceros. This Indian rhinoceros was in the British Museum, and in rhino actually developed the fracture of the hip bone, and it is very unusual that a rhino will develop a fracture of the hip bone. So obviously authority planned to have a autopsy of this rhino, and what they found, an interesting observation, that there is 4 glands almost of a tomato size and parallel to the thyroid gland. So how the name came is the parathyroid gland, from this rhino identifying this organ from that, and then they found that this is probably the gland responsible for this fracture, and how this PTH is coming from these glands and responsible for the fracture. Next please. So brief about the parathyroid hormone, which is secreted by the parathyroid gland. Those are 4 in numbers, situated in the neck parallel to the thyroid gland. The first described by the James B. Collip. Actually he identified and described this parathyroid hormone. So now coming to the presentation of the primary hyperparathyroidism after a brief history. I say primary hyperparathyroidism is systemic disease because patients of primary hyperparathyroidism can reach to any department of your hospital or your clinic, or with any complaint. Like they came with the complaint of orthopedics complaint in form of bone pains, in form of deformity, in form of fractures, and so on. So I am taking an interesting case of the 17-year-old male patient. Actually he presented with the neck swelling which was gradually increasing, and also he became a bed bound over a period of 2 to 3 years. When he was investigated, found to have serum calcium was 15.6, phosphate was 2.8, alkaline phosphate is very high, that is around 1800 international per unit, and vitamin D was 6 nanogram per ml, which is very low, severe vitamin D deficiency. Again the PTH was very sky high, that was 202,000 picogram per ml. So by looking at this picture, it is very clear that patient is suffering from the primary hyperparathyroidism. But this patient actually took a long time to reach to a final diagnosis of primary hyperparathyroidism, because the knowledge or the awareness about the primary hyperparathyroidism was not much, though he was mentioned or the diagnosed the rickets rather than the primary hyperparathyroidism. I agree, there are the certain points those are mimicking with the rickets in the primary hyperparathyroidism, like they may have high alkaline phosphatase, they may have high PTH, but very interesting, the vitamin D deficiency is also there, but high calcium in presence of vitamin D deficiency with high PTH, the diagnosis is nothing but the primary hyperparathyroidism. So in next your clinical practice, you see a patient of the high PTH, look at the vitamin D, the vitamin D low, look at the calcium, if the calcium is high and PTH is high, nothing but the diagnosis is the primary hyperparathyroidism, and that patient can be of any age group. So you can see here that this patient is having the swelling in the neck, so it gives an impression that this thyroid gland is enlarged, and somebody might thought of next please, thyroid carcinoma, because the radiology or the radiographs are suggestive of severe bone involvement, and even you can see the patient has the fracture of the bilateral tibia and fibula on the left side, so you can see it clearly. So that is a red herring, that patient might be having the thyroid malignancy with bone metastasis. But you can see here that there is very nice OFC is there, that is very characteristic of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Next please. Now when this patient is further evaluated, you found that X-ray pelvis is very much suggestive of bilateral femoral fracture, coxa vara, pelvis, this pelvic outlet is completely destroyed, and this X-ray skull is showing the salt and pepper appearance, which is almost diagnostic of the primary hyperparathyroidism. When this patient was subjected for the surgery, histopathology revealed that the patient is having the vascular invasion, you can see very well here, or the patient has the capsular invasion. So they suspected to the primary hyperparathyroidism due to parathyroid carcinoma. So meaning by that, this patient even at a young age can present with the severe hypercalcemia and primary hyperparathyroidism. Next please. And now you can observe, in addition to that, this patient is in bilateral renal stone disease. That is also very interesting. So you can now observe the patient almost every feature to suggest the primary hyperparathyroidism, but it reached many years to the final diagnosis of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Next please. Now coming to the extreme of age, this 96-year-old female, she had a loss of appetite, she had a bilateral renal stone disease, and she had a fracture. So when she was evaluated, of course the primary hyperparathyroidism is post-menopausal female, but 96 is not an age, but it can happen, it can develop at any age. So biochemistry is very classically suggestive of the primary hyperparathyroidism, very high PTH with high serum calcium, and she had a osteopenia on the bone mineral density. Next please. So a primary hyperpara can present in the younger age, maybe in the pediatric age group, they can present in the geriatric age group. Now they can reach to the other OPDs, like in here you can see in this picture that patient present to the dental OPD or the dental surgeon. So you can see here the patient left corner, there is small swelling on the upper lip area, and that is nothing but, is very clear the patient is having epulis. Now here you can see the patient again presented with the maxillary swelling and giving an impression that patient might be having the maxillary carcinoma. And on the CT scan again there is large soft tissue shadow is there, again confusing that patient might not have any maxillary carcinoma. But when she was investigated, found to have the high calcium, high PTH, and patient was subjected for the surgery, and she responded very well to this treatment. So primary hyperpara patient can reach to our dental surgeons, so that they should also aware of that how primary hyperpara can present. Next please. Now coming to the another department, that is ophthalmology department. So here you can see a patient actually presented with the proptosis, unilateral proptosis in the right eye, and you can observe here that there is OFC in the right eye, and you can see that in the right eye there is a proptosis is there. Then patient was investigated, found to have a hyperpara classical, patient operated upon, and you can observe that patient is improved completely. So this is how patient can reach to the ophthalmology OPD of primary hyperpara. Next please. Now it is very interesting, the patients of primary hyperpara can have the pictures like here. You can see that the second metatarsal is vanished. So we sometimes can call it as a vanishing bone disease or the primary hyperpara. And very interesting to observe that after surgery there is complete improvement in the or complete reappearance of the second metatarsal. Next please. Another patient of primary hyperpara, upper panel, you can see all the x-rays very much suggestive of the moth-eaten appearance of the bones, and you can see that somebody might think of multiple myeloma or maybe some bone metastasis. But post-operatively you can observe after 1 year of the successful parathyroid surgery, the patient is completely improved and this bone density is increased almost more than 100%. So almost bone density doubled after the successful parathyroid surgery. Next please. Very interesting for the orthopedic surgeon or for the physician, those are called for the fracture fixation after the fracture. So I'll suggest all the physician that you must always try to find out a cause for the fracture. And even in the patient after the successful parathyroidectomy, there is no need to do any fixation of the fracture because it will improve on its own. Here you can see very nice x-ray is the x-ray pelvis, and you can observe if carefully there is upper end of the femur is turned upside down. So you can see the head is below and the lower part is up. So this patient was subjected for the primary hyperpara surgery, and post surgery this patient was just on the sling, and you can splint, and you can see that within 3 months it is reunited. Though that is a malunion is there, that can be taken care, but there is no need to immediately fix the surgery or fix the bone fixation in the case of the primary hyperparathyroidism, because in initial stage the bone may not be that strong to retain the you put any nail or you put any rod, etc. So it is best to wait for this spontaneous healing. Next please. Now as I mentioned the title that 6 sticks and the spilled stones. So here you can see what is 6 sticks. So you can see the 6 sticks, meaning by that all the bones of the body are actually involved. So any part of the bone of the body bones all are involved, whether it is skull, whether it is femur, whether it is tibia, whether it is fibula, whether it is hand, whether it is spine. So this is what we call it the 6 sticks. Now coming to the next part, another interesting is 30-year-old female presented with the male presented with the pain abdomen. There was no history of alcoholism, and you can see here this is a calcium which was high, phosphate was normal, alkaline phosphatase was actually normal. It is an old patient, so you have to multiply to convert into international by the 26 actually. But you can see the PTH was low, so the possibility of primary hyperparathyroidism was very low here. And this patient actually presented with pain abdomen and found to a very nice pseudo pancreatic cyst. So they confirmed that patient had the pancreatitis. Then patient was underwent a X-ray flat plate abdomen, and again you can see that nice bilateral renal stones, 2 white stain is there in this patient. Then this patient was subjected for, though the patient is a low PTH, but high calcium, normal phosphate, and the normal alkaline phosphatase, high normal alkaline phosphatase, but the patient is no history of alcoholism, and patient is a pancreatitis with renal stone disease. So we thought of primary hyperparathyroidism, though the PTH was very low. So this patient was subjected for the system AB scan, and the system AB scan showed a uptake in this area. And there was no gallstone, no other cause of pancreatitis, like vitamin D was normal, there is no vitamin D toxicity, lipid triglycerides were normal, no gallstone disease. But we were sure that when the system we scan is having sensitivity and specificity of approximately 95 to 100%. So when this patient subjected for the system AB scan, it showed a localization for the parathyroid adenoma. So then this patient was actually subjected for the surgery, and the post surgery the patient improved significantly, and interestingly his PTH was also normalized. So the message from this particular patient is that you should keep a high index of suspicion about the primary hyperparathyroidism, even the PTH was low. Though for the general physician it is a very rare chance that you come across such patient, but from this patient I want to convey a message to you all that primary hyperparathyroidism is an important cause of the pancreatitis. Remember this thing, it may be very informative and very useful. So these patients can go to the orthopedics, can go to the urology department, very well known. They are major feeder for us. They can go to the gastroenterology department with pancreatitis, and they can go to the various, because of the problems of the renal stone disease at various sites. They can have high chances of gallstone disease, high chances of pancreatitis and all. So here we did very small study, but it was a very useful study. So what we did is we compared three types of pancreatitis. One is chronic pancreatitis because of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Second was chronic pancreatitis because of alcoholism, and third was chronic pancreatitis because of idiopathic nature, cause is not known. And what we found is very interesting, that all chronic pancreatitis with PHPT patient had the renal colic or nephrolithiasis, and approximately 40% had the nephrocalcinosis, while none of the patient in case of alcoholism related pancreatitis and idiopathic pancreatitis had either renal stone disease or nephrocalcinosis. Though the pancreatic calcification was comparable in all these groups, and pseudocyst was also almost comparable in all these groups, but from this particular slide the message I want to give you is that if you see a patient of pancreatitis with renal stone disease, you must suspect or you must think the diagnosis is very likely to be primary hyperparathyroidism as a cause of pancreatitis. Now, as I mentioned, there's 6 ticks, and the second word of my title was that spilled stones. So that spilled stones, you can see stones in the renal kidneys, stones in the ureter, stones in the steroid stones in the bladder, stones in the pancreas. So you can see stones are spilled all over the body, all over the organs of the various organs of the body. So how this term, the 6 ticks, the involvement of the skeleton, the spilled stones involve presence of the stones. So the 6 ticks and spilled stones is actually nothing but the primary hyperparathyroidism. So in your clinical practice, think of bone involvement and the stone involvement, then the diagnosis is primary hyperparathyroidism. So this primary hyperparathyroidism term was coined by Professor Fuller Albright. He is the father of modern medicine, and he is described first time Pentado PHPT in 1930. Now coming to the PHPT publications, world versus India. So to my surprise, I found that India just contributed 0.75% of PHPT publication in the world literature. Though India is responsible for the 1/5 of the world population, meaning by that we should contribute at least 20% of publications of PHPT from India. If not 20%, at least 5 to 10%, but we are just contributing 0.75% of PHPT publication as compared to the world. Meaning by it, we are not taking this disease seriously, we are not aware of the disease, our index of suspicion is very low about this disease. Why it is so? Though the PHPT is third most common endocrine disorder, but I never examined a patient during my MD days. Probably I have missed. I agree to that. May not be a case for MD exam. And finally, the Harrison, which is the most common textbook we all read medicine people is that Harrison, and Harrison says the PHPT is most commonly asymptomatic. Here is the catch. Because we read that PHPT is asymptomatic, the most common presentation. Unfortunately, in India, still the symptomatic PHPT is the most common presentation rather than asymptomatic PHPT, or pentado PHPT is the most common presentation. Next, please. So I am keeping here the Harrison textbook. Next, the nutritional metabolic bone and stone disease and the manual of clinical endocrinology. These are the three textbooks. When we read Harrison, because it gives a glimpse or it is a Western textbook, so I suggest to know the disease of our own country profile, we should our own local textbook also, that gives actually the exact idea what we are dealing with that. So that is a nutritional and metabolic bone and stone disease, and so you should read these two textbooks if you want to read about the glimpse of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Next, please. Now question comes is the when to suspect PHPT. Suspect PHPT in case of recurrent renal stone disease, in case of pancreatitis, next, in case of fragility fracture, next, in case of recurrent pain abdomen, that may be because of multiple causes are there of pain abdomen in primary hyperparathyroidism. Next, please. And then non-specific complaint. Patient is complaining of anorexia, patient is complaining of weight loss, patient is complaining of depression. All these things also you should suspect the primary hyperparathyroidism. Now question comes is patient of PHPT can reach to any OPD. So if you are working in a hospital, this primary hyperpara patient can reach to any of your clinic or your outpatient department. If you don't have any clue about any disease where you are unable to diagnose or you are unable to make a particular diagnosis, then you must think of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Now briefly, PHPT, how it involves the hematology department. So primary hyperparathyroidism is known to cause anemia because of multiple mechanisms, especially the bone marrow fibrosis. So we did a very small study and we did the bone marrow aspiration of these primary hyperpara patients. So you can see pre-operatively, these upper two panels, you can see there is gross fibrosis of the bone marrow. When these patient underwent successful parathyroidectomy and the bone marrow aspiration was repeated, and you can see nicely post-operatively normalization of the bone marrow. So this is what the pre-operative lot of fibrosis, post-operative complete disappearance of the fibrosis. So that is actually the responsible for the normalization of the hemoglobin after successful parathyroid surgery. These patients can present with the thrombocytopenia also of the patient of PHPT, and these patients actually we followed these patients after 10 years, and what we found is that none of the patient again developed the anemia after the curative parathyroidectomy. So this again underscores that the primary hyperpara can present with the anemia, and the cause of anemia is actually primary hyperparathyroidism. After successful surgery, none of the patient again developed the anemia. So you can argue that it is not always necessary, the cause of anemia is always primary hyperparathyroidism. Yes, I do agree with you that, but in the setting of primary hyperpara, if it says like that after 10 years of follow-up, that it again proves that the cause of anemia was the primary hyperparathyroidism. So since there is very little information is available on the primary hyperparathyroidism from our country, so we made a Indian PHPT registry to collect the data on the Indian PHPT registry, and same time we did the lot of genetic works, but I think need not to go into the detail for this audience that we did the genomics, epigenetics, proteomics, etc. Next please. Next please. So this is the this is the Indian PHPT registry. So you can see that Indian PHPT registry, we have collected data from 2005 to 2015 across the 5 centers of the country, and total approximately 500 patients data were collected, and you can see here that asymptomatic PHPT, which Harrison says the PHPT is most commonly present asymptomatic, is very, very low. While the most of the places the PHPT is symptomatic. And here the 5 centers those contributed in this Indian PHPT registry is PGI Chandigarh, All India Institute of New Delhi, IPGMR Kolkata, Fortis Hospital Jaipur, and the Hospital Chennai. So these five states actually, 5 institutes actually contributed for this data. So you can see here the comparison of clinical and biochemical parameters. Those are comparable all the places, and most of the places the patient was symptomatic. Vitamin D deficiency was still very rampant. Patients are present requiring cholecystectomy in a significant percent of the patients. Anemia was present variable from 50 to 60% of all the patients. Clinical and biochemical parameters in different centers were little bit different. Like vitamin D deficiency was much more severe in the patients from the All India Institute, like they were very low vitamin D, whereas the high calcium was observed in the Fortis Hospital. That may be because of the Rajasthan, where is high temperature, and lack of high temperature is probably responsible for the dehydration, high serum calcium. So this was very nice publication made in Journal of Bone and Mineral Metabolism, widely quoted and widely accepted. So coming to the next please, coming to the final slide, the PHPT in India is at younger age of onset. Almost all are symptomatic. Majority are vitamin D deficient. Few may be normocalcemic, more severe and frequent hungry bone, higher adenoma weight. So Harrison says most common presentation of PHPT is asymptomatic. But this is not true for us. So PHPT in East and West is different in many ways. We are very symptomatic. West is very less symptomatic. Age of onset is 3rd to 4th decade. In West it is 5th to 6th decade. So similar to various other disorders, the onset of PHPT in India is at younger age. Like we have a 10 years early onset of diabetes. We have a 10 years early age of onset of osteoporosis. All these are the various things you can see that this primary hyperplasia also falls in same line. So here in this slide I have taken from the one of the paper, and you can see that primary hyperparathyroidism in India is like this cohort of the herd of the elephants. It may be very rarely asymptomatic or monosymptomatic, or it may be like mother elephant, it may be very symptomatic or multiple symptoms may be there. So this diagram you can remember that PHPT can be there asymptomatic to symptomatic, but right now in India the PHPT is symptomatic. So next please, the final slide, I will say the PHPT patients can lead to endocrinology, urology, orthopedic surgery, gastroenterology, nephrology, hematology, neurology, dental department, pediatrics, cardiopulmonary. So primary hyperpara patient can be coming from any of the departments. So in this hall, all the people those are dealing with various specialties or general physician, they must understand that primary hyperpara you can see with any symptom the patient of the primary hyperparathyroidism. Next please. So I'll end here my presentation, and to saying that you should know about the primary hyperparathyroidism. We should have a separate guideline of primary hyperparathyroidism, because what we are reading in various textbooks is of the Western guidelines. And the Western guidelines, again I am repeating, they say the PHPT is asymptomatic, but I say no, PHPT is not asymptomatic in India, it is very symptomatic. So all general physicians should know that PHPT is symptomatic, keep a high index of suspicion to diagnose these patients. Thank you very much for your patience listening. If there is any question and comment, I am not personally there, but I'll be, if these are reaching to me, I'll be able to answer them. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank Dr. Vitul and his team, Mapicon organizing team, for giving me this opportunity to interact with this august gathering on very, very important issue of primary hyperparathyroidism, which is missed for a long period of time. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.